Best of r/entitled parents episode 134. Subscribe for Reddit videos daily. My mother was raised on a farm, and when I was young we'd often stop on the side of the road and pet animals through the fence while they grazed in the pasture. Horses, cows, sheep, what have you. One of my favorite memories was stopping at a farm where the pig pen was filled with piglets and pigs packed tight. So many that every once in a while one would be squeezed up and walk on the other's backs till he found a hole back down. I've now done this with my children. But recently when we rented a house in VT, I wondered if this was the norm. I kept being really paranoid every time we would stop, but my children loved it so. Can we go see Brownie the horse? That I kept it up. We lived in the suburbs, so this was some of their only exposure to farm life. All the paranoia was realized when we stopped at a farm with a store. We had been to the store before and they had a bunch of emphatic signs about saying something about ringing the bell then waiting to enter, don't go in this freezer, don't just leave money on the counter, etc. It was a little strange because most farms had a stand with a lockbox so you could self-serve. The guy had already yelled at me once because I rang the bell and opened the store door to call hello. The gruff guy came from the farmhouse and grumbled about the sign saying not to go in. I said sorry and tried to buy enough stuff to not feel like an asshole for opening the door. Well, the next time we stopped, there was a pen of sheep off of the road up to the store. Me and my two little ones were walking over to say hi and feed him some grass. The farmer barked from an upper farmhouse window asking what the hell we were doing and said that it was a working farm. I yupped the hell out of there, but I felt horrible. Horrible that I had disrespected his property. Horrible that my kids got yelled at and I put them in that situation. Afterward though, I decided he was just a grump ass. All the farmers I had ever met before, including my grandpa, were the best salt of the earth people ever to exist. The kind that would help any neighbor and would be happy to give you a peek at farm life. So I ask you, am I right or am I an entitled parent? TLDR. Is it cool for me to let my kids pet farm animals on the side of the road or not? Thank you. Next. Sorry if there's any mistake in my English. So, it was December of 2018, and my semester just ended the month before. Our college reported to all the students that the registration for the next semester would be beginning at the end of December. Unfortunately, due to some issues of payment for the registration on the online portal, everyone was asked to submit the fees to the school administration manually. It was quite a bother. So, I tried going at day one of the fee submission. After waiting for like fucking 6 hours, the administration staff decided they would be out for lunch. After coming back, the staff told us that there was an administrative meeting they had to attend. Hundreds of students were pissed after waiting in a line in the freezing cold for so long. So, I went on day 2 again. I was waiting for like 3 hours, when suddenly enters a bunch of Desi Karens. Since I am Indian, you also might be wondering why are parents coming to submit a college kid's fee. Well, you know, there are those daddy's princess kinda girls who thinks their time isn't worth spending in such a thing like this. There were like 5 of them, all of them with their high-pitched laughing. One of them suddenly rammed and plummeted through a bunch of students. Important note, all the students were divided into a line of 2. The first TP reached the counter and submitted her kid's fee, and she smugly looked at the students and said, in Hindi, EP, well, I am in a hurry, so I need to submit my daughter's fees first, so you all can wait. Almost every student was pissed at this. I can just look on those students' eyes and can tell that, if you gave a loaded gun to any of these stressed out students they would have killed her. The first EP left and joined the other EPs and exclaimed, well, go on now, you'll find gap between the kids, just quickly go in and submit your fees, these kids can wait. After hearing that remark, everyone was pissed, so, we made a plan. We weren't gonna let those EPs get anywhere near the counter, so the back end of the line formed a kind of barricade with their backs. We just stood there like a scattered impenetrable wall. Those other EPs were trying too hard trying to push through us, but unfortunately they couldn't do anything. There was not a bit of gap between us and the counter since we were around the entire counter. After a few failed tries, suddenly, one of those EPs shouted, excuse me, can't you college students be more proper, and you guys should maintain a line. I guess that's what happens if your parents teaches you nothing? The EP, exactly, learn some damn manners. At that moment, one of my classmates basically ripped those EP apart. Something about the classmate, she basically is the shy kinda girl in our department. She doesn't talk much, bring good grades, she said, in Hindi. Aren't you the lowest of scum? We have been standing here from like yesterday to submit our fees. Don't be that much entitled that you think that you should be given any special treatment. Stand in the line like the rest of us. After she spoke up, everyone just ripped those two Karens apart. In that commotion, the vice principal of our college showed up and asked what's going on. EP, your students are very rude. You should expel them. One of the students standing at the end of line told the principal the matters, and well, the vice principal ripped them apart too. He said, you as adults should at least have the moral to stand in a line. These kids have been waiting for themselves for like hours, and why aren't your kids coming to do this submission themselves? Parents like you spoils them, and don't be that much entitled to think that you can skip the line. The other 3 EPs quickly got away from the scene, and the last 2 EPs were turning red. You know, in an anime when people get shamed they turn red? Well, you could see them doing that exactly. They left the office quickly. After like 2 hours, I submitted my fees and left to my dorm room. Thank you. Next. In my area, the first hour of grocery store business is open only to the elderly, immunocompromised, and pregnant. As someone 37 weeks pregnant, I am grateful for a period of shopping without swarms of people. It seems my fellow gloved and masked elderly feel the same way. QEM, who enters the store during this hour, with her young crotch goblin. She proceeds to spend the entire shopping trip on her cell phone, while the young child runs around everywhere, possibly spreading sickness to all of the elderly around the store. Sorry, there is no epic confrontation here. I was just trying to get in, out, and go, but wanted to share my rage with someone. Thank you. Next. This one just blew my mind, and seriously ticked me off. This happened yesterday. I'll try to type any dialogue to the best of my recollection. I ended up at the grocery store because I realized there were a few necessities I forgot to stock in preparation for my family's self-isolation. Shopping was relatively easy, though it was fairly busy. People wore masks and kept a wide berth from one another. When I got to the checkout section I was satisfied because everyone kept about 6 feet between themselves and others in line. I stepped into a line that only had one woman in it. Her purchases were already on the conveyor belt, and she was standing down by the cashier about 6 feet in front of me. She had her empty cart behind her, so my shopping cart was pushed up against hers. Brilliant way to force distancing BTW. Now, in American groceries it's common that the aisle dividers at the end of the conveyor belt extend 3-5 feet so the shops can stock the shelves with impulse items. Since I was at the end of the conveyor belt and the aisle dividers extended, I was essentially trapped. Enter EM, her husband, and their 3-year-old daughter. EM and her husband step right up behind me. I could practically feel the husband's breath when he spoke. EM is holding her 3Y/O in her arms. I could reach out and touch them all without fully extending my arms. Me, whoa. Can you please back up? The experts are recommending a distance of 6 feet during this pandemic. EM, with seriously, straight up BTCH attitude. Excuse you. I'm fine right where I am. Why, you think you're some sort of Disney princess that can get people to do what you want if you snap your fingers? Me, flabbergasted, please back up. You're entirely too close to me. EM, I ain't sick, princess. Mind your expletive business. Me, can you please back up so that I can exit this line? You can have my spot. EM and her husband back up and allow me to pull my cart out of the line. As I'm walking toward the next cashier I hear EM, told you this works. Now, I got the impression that EM intended to run me out of the line because of this statement. It was something conspiratorial in the delivery. I could be wrong, of course. Well, when I stepped up into another cashier's line, the cashier I just left began having some sort of system errors. All other lines were 3 or 4 people deep, so lucky me. EM and her family repeat the same behavior behind me. The entire family is once again within hugging distance, or perhaps punching distance. EM smiles smugly. I'm ticked and it bled into my verbiage. Me, you should be ashamed of yourself. You're risking your daughter's health, my health, to prove some sort of point that is entirely lost on me. Do you need to establish dominance? Back up and let me leave this line. Shut the expletive up. My daughter isn't sick. I take care of my kid. Me, your daughter isn't sick yet. You keep playing these stupid games and you'll win stupid prizes and your daughter may get a participation trophy. I'm moving past her and towards another line. I decide to get into line behind two individuals practicing distancing. Steps up to the register and loudly begins to complain to the cashier. You need to kick that woman out of your store. She just told me that she hopes my daughter gets corona. Cashier, lady, I don't have the patience for you today. I saw what happened. You were out of line. End of discussion. The woman in line ahead of me starts laughing. I'm smiling like a vindicated idiot. Are you kidding me? You're out of line. I want to talk to your manager. Cashier, sure, no problem. When you leave just call the store and we will get him on the phone for you. No, I want to talk to him now. Cashier, and I want a Hemsworth brother waiting naked in my bed when I get home. Neither of those things is happening. At this point I've decided I wish I were a man because I am sort of in love with this cashier. He's definitely won me over. How dare you be so vulgar in front of my daughter? Cashier, the same daughter that heard you tell another customer to shut the duck up. The EM was ticked but shut her mouth for the remainder of their interaction. I eyed her the whole time waiting for her to lose her marbles. The husband never spoke to anyone other than EM. She ended up exiting the store before me. Of course, as she exited she kept promising to call the manager and have the witty cashier's job. After she left the cashier turned around and gave me the proudest, cheesiest smile and said, I got your back, sis. I love him. Edited other words were exchanged between cashier and EM. However, I only shared what parts of the conversation I felt I remembered correctly, which was the beginning of their interaction. The EM didn't raise her voice anymore so the rest of it was a bit anticlimactic. Thank you. Next. Backstory. So during this whole quarantine kerfuffle, my dad offered to pay me to help him trim up a couple of trees around our property. I'm out of school for a while so I agreed. Today we were working on one tree at the front of our yard. My dad was using a chainsaw to cut down a tree that had grown next to the tree we were trimming. I was standing off to the side watching, trying not to get hit by the tree. It was like 12 FT, when my neighbor, walks up and taps me on the shoulder. Excuse me, but what are you doing to that tree? I just want to point out that I have never really met my neighbors. I just know who they are. Me, oh, hey we are just clearing out the areas below the trees. Well you can't cut it down. Me, what? I thought she meant the tree that we were already cutting down. Oh well, we are clearing out under the tree to make it look nicer. No, not that one, the main one. Me, we aren't cutting it down. Yes you are, now tell him to stop. Me, trust me my father isn't going to cut down that tree. Do it or I'm going to tell the hoa. Me, alright then. Small pause. Me, are you going to tell them or what? Teens these days are so stupid and sassy. Me, see your I walked away. Just to let you know has tried several times over the years to report us to the hoa but first off we don't have one. Second off she keeps trying to form one behind our back, but all of our other neighbors are against it. She's threatened to call the police on my family before and her nice husband had to talk her down from it. My father asked what she wanted and I just told him that she was acting crazy. He totally agreed and we cut the second tree. Thank you. Next. So I'll start by saying I'm mostly vegan but I occasionally indulge in an egg or some cheese at breakfast. This morning happened to be one of those occasions. Wasn't planned or anything. I went out to buy donuts for the factory. One of my guys is having his last day today so I figured it would be nice if I bought everybody donuts to send him off. Next to our favorite donut joint, Daniel's Donuts in Springvale, Victoria. Orts, if anyone's interested, best fucking donuts ever, is a Hungry Jack's. That's Aussie Burger King for the rest of you. Don't know why they rebranded down here but they did. Anyways I hadn't had breakfast this morning and figured fuck it I'll pop into HJ's for a vegan avocado muffin. Now those things are alright, but I was a little extra hungry and kinda in the mood for an egg, so I asked for the vegan avo muffin with egg in a large meal, Coke for the drink. It's at this point a woman who had already ordered completely lost her fucking mind. Should mention she's an EM, as she did have a little kid with her. Poor lil bugger was quiet the whole time though. The woman went up to the counter and asked them what I'd ordered. I was raised to mind my own business, so while I could overhear the conversation I shut my mouth. What did that tradie just order? Cashier, vegan meal with egg. Well, if it has egg it can't be vegan. Change the order so there's no egg. Cashier, I can't do that ma'am. He ordered what he wanted and paid extra for the egg. That's ridiculous. If I order a vegan burger with bacon, would you make it? Cashier, of course. But that's impossible. Bacon isn't vegan. This went on for a bit until I lost it and started laughing. You think this is funny? What the fuck is wrong with you? Me, nothing. I ordered a delicious meal and you're losing your mind. It's pretty funny. You're just a fucking troll. I bet this whole thing was a joke and you ordered this to piss me off. Me, lady, how would I have known it would piss you off? Sorry, are you vegan or something? Do I look like a stinking hippie? No, I'm not fucking vegan and neither are you. You're too fucking fat to be vegan. LOL, I've heard this before. I haven't eaten meat in 26 years, since I was a little nipper, but I've been fat most of my life and have heard you can't be vegan/vegetarian because you're fat. Can I just please dispel that misconception? Just because you don't eat meat doesn't mean you eat healthy. Me, and yet I am vegan, but I occasionally enjoy an egg. Even if I wasn't, I don't see how it's any business of yours what I order and why. Maybe I'm not vegan but just like the patty and avo. Don't be stupid, you obviously did this to piss me off. Change your order now. Me, lady, I'm not changing anything and you can kiss the fattest part of my ass if you don't like it. Kick him out of the store. Kick him out of the store. Now there is no satisfying ending to this except that my meal was ready and I grabbed it. She reached out her hand to take it but I was quicker than her, smiled at her and said bon appetit before leaving. There was no store manager, no men in white coats to drag this bitch away kicking and screaming, and no child services rep to swoop in and save the kid. Just a crazy cunt who can't mind her own business, and me, a dude who encounters why too many crazies. Thank you. Next. This story takes place during the week my wife and I got married. I was 28 at the time. We had a destination wedding in the Bahamas and it was amazing. We had 15 people able to join us. We had picked Bahamas as it was the first place my wife ever did a vacation to, and it's where I proposed to her. So for us, the week was pure magic. Now onto the story of my mother. I would write about her antics during the whole week, but I don't think people want to read a book, so I'll only talk about the wedding day itself. It's Wednesday, middle of our trip. Both me and my wife wanted to follow the don't see each other before the wedding rule. We've gotten some flack for it, but whatever. We were getting married off the resort in a small blue church in a nature sanctuary. I was to go first and my wife would follow. While waiting on the rides for me, my best man, and our guests, my mom kept saying things. It's Italian tradition for the mother to take photos with the groom before the wedding. It's Italian tradition for the mother to take photos with the best man and guests. This was getting annoying, but then my mother pulls me aside and starts to have a heart-to-heart talk to me, which I thought was going to go one way. It was basically a lecture about how important she is and how selfish I was. She ended it with, it's also Italian tradition to wear these cufflinks. I was expecting cufflinks from that my grandpa wore at his wedding. I respected him greatly. He was a huge influence in my life. She pulls out these dollar store cufflinks and kept trying to pass them off as a family heirloom. I later found out that she had bought them in Bahamas as an impulse buy. Also, my suit wasn't made with cufflinks in mind. Anyways, as the rides show up, my mother tells me, oh, don't forget, it's Italian tradition for the mother to walk to the son down the aisle. Everyone looked at her like she was crazy, cause even my dumbass knows that's not a tradition anywhere. I called her out on that and she starts arguing with me. She sort relents and tells me, well, if you're going to break your mother's heart, at least follow the Italian tradition of making your brother the usher. I told her that like only 6 people were coming with me, but fine, whatever. We finally leave, my mother staying behind to stay with the bride's side. Lord knows what crap she tried to pull with her. We get to the nature sanctuary and go to the small blue church that can hold maybe 40 people. Everyone just sits where they want and my brother stands by the door. Now, my wife's maid of honor is her best friend and she's a sickening amazing person. Honestly, she's properly the most selfless person on the planet. However, her only flaw is that she's very loud. I bring that up because when my wife and everyone with her pulls up, you can hear her maid of honor and the distance between us is large. I perk up and get ready when my brother, who is still standing by the door, says I'm gonna go have a smoke and explore the park, and I tell him we just heard them pull up. No. He tries arguing with me but finally just shuts up and gives me dirty looks for the rest of the day. The place is huge and maze-like. The other guests show up. Everyone gets their seats. We didn't care who sat where. We start the wedding and I see my soon-to-be wife as a bride come around the corner. My heart stops and I realize that this is the best moment in my life. Everyone else apparently knew what I was thinking because I had a smile that went from ear to ear. Honestly, the 2 seconds of her coming around the corner made all my stress vanish. My wife looked at me and gave me a huge smile as well. Seeing her walk down the aisle is a memory I replay in my head all the time. Sorry for the sappy bit. Wedding goes great. We do our vows. I can hear my best man behind me crying like his mom just died. After the ceremony my mother is back into Italian tradition mode. It's Italian tradition for the mother to have a photo with the groom. It's Italian tradition for the mother to ziz. If I were to type out everything that was Italian tradition, no one would read this. Later when we got our photos back, my mother had this scowl in her face and the entire time. There's one that's my favorite because it's during the whole do you take up to be part and she has this look of like pure disgust and hatred. It's great. So we get back to the resort. We have our reception. I think that's what it's called. I'm just an idiot and forget. My mother tries to start it out by saying it's Italian tradition for the mother of the groom to do 3 speeches. My best man wasn't having that and put his foot down on who does a speech. He kicked ass at keeping her insanity in control during the week. Everyone does their speeches. My now in-laws do theirs and hand us a card. In it says when we get home, we will give you $1,000 as a wedding present. Awesome. My mother tried a few more Italian traditions. One was about her cutting the cake. Several were about her and various photos with people. The cap to the night after dinner, my mother walks up to me and my now wife and says to her, how much did your parents give you? She was like, huh? And my mother goes, well, it's Italian tradition for the groom's parents to give double of the bride's parents. We paused in confusion and told her they haven't given us anything yet but they will give us $1,000 when we get home. My mother goes, good, I'll give you $3,000 then. We were like, okay. Spoilers. My mother never gave us a single penny. It's been 4 years since our wedding and my mother tells people that she paid for everything. The wedding, my suit, my wife's dress. Her grandma with dementia bought it for her, so that really pisses off my wife. All 17, counting my wife and me, people's airfare, hotel, wedding ceremony, and so much more. The only thing she paid for was her and my brother trip, and the only reason my brother came was because it was a free vacation for him. And I'll end it with this fun fact. I'm half Italian but have never once in my life done anything Italian or have acknowledged my Italian half. My wife and I also don't care about tradition. She's Polish. I'm half Italian, half Irish. We got married in a Christian Bahamian church. What's also funny is my mother refuses to call my wife her name. She just says your wife in a snide tone. How are you and your wife kind of thing. So yeah. That's my Italian tradition wedding. And yes, I've cut that toxic woman out of my life.